How far are we from human exploration on Mars?
Well, if we take make the right choices right now, we're about 20 years out. We could very well land humans on Mars by the 2030s.
What's the atmosphere there? I mean, what would people have to...
Well, they have to bring their own atmosphere. There's a CO2 atmosphere. It's much thinner than Earth. However, there is a lot of there are resources on the planet which we could utilize to manufacture our own, oxygen and water and everything else. So there's a lot of resources there where we could live off the land. So that's one of the reasons why it's an appealing location to send humans.
So they'd have to be wearing like oxygen masks or living in contained vessels or something like that.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Now, you are not part of NASA, but you work with NASA, correct?
Yes, Explore Mars is a 501c3 nonprofit. We're fairly new. We were founded 4 years ago now, in 2010, basically to work policy, STEM education, so it's appropriate, the NEA's sponsoring this program because we do a lot of STEM work. So we run programs, and we're about to start launching some innovation and technical projects as well.
And your idea is now is NASA committed to? First of all, we do have these rovers on Mars, right? 2 of them.
Yeah, we currently have 2 operational rovers on Mars. The most recent one, the Curiosity rover, that landed a couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago. And then we have the Opportunity rover, which landed over 10 years ago, has been going remarkably well for so many years.
Are they going to meet up?
No, they're not going to meet up unless they go a really long time.
Don't you think it'd be, the only 2 kind of human machine or contraptions or whatever or contributions to Mars that they'd want to meet up and just sort of, have a beer or something?
And that would be
seriously, wouldn't you?
Is that a sequel to Her?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, actually, I'd be more intrigued if we could have people meet up with them first.
I would too. Yeah, I understand. I just was curious. But so they're up there. But is NASA now committed to putting people, and I started to say a man on Mars. No, but we have to say a person on Mars now.
A person, humans to Mars.
Humans to Mars.
Well, the current policy, broadly speaking, is supposed to be getting humans to Mars somewhere in the 2030s, but it's very vague on whether we're landing, if it's just going to be a flyby or anything else. So the policy right now is vague. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to do that. We did this activity recently trying to bring all the stakeholders together, basically the people who designed the mission, the science folks, NASA and others, in a kind of separate from NASA, to talk about, first off, is this feasible by 2030? And there was consensus, it absolutely is, and we can do it in a way that could be affordable as well. Not within a sequestration budget, but with roughly the same amount of budget, if we make the right decisions and we can achieve political and budgetary stability, we can actually achieve this goal. And oddly enough, it's not necessarily the engineering which is the main problem from what I've been observing from all these key players. It's the politics and the budget, being able to maintain a program that many years and create budgetary stability.
So in other words, we have the technology to do it. What we need is the will to do it and make it a priority, correct?
Absolutely.
Like John F. Kennedy said, we're going to put a man on the moon.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the real challenge.
So, but isn't there a big leap between landing a mission on the moon where they get off like Neil Armstrong did and walk around, take some pictures, right, and then get back on the ship and leave, as to really staying there for a while and starting a colony there? Or
that's absolutely. There's a lot more.
When you say 20 years, you just mean humans reaching the planet, don't you?
Yeah, just the first missions to Mars. Now, these will be continuous missions, but we have a lot to learn. There's no question about it. There are an awful lot of technologies we need to develop along the way and learn how to live away from the planet for a long period of time. Lots of challenges, but we're not going to actually solve any of them until we decide to do it. But when people say, well, can we do it? Is it feasible? Well, I guarantee it's far more feasible going to Mars in 20 years than when JFK made his speech. We had 15 minutes of spaceflight experience when JFK made his speech, and he said we're going to land on people on moon by the end of the decade, and we did in 8 years. That was remarkable, but it was far less feasible to go to the moon when JFK made his speech.
All right, now, I've traveled a lot, right? I've never been to India. I've never been to Egypt. I've never been to Australia. Why the hell do I want to go to Mars?
Well, I get that. I understand that. Now, our space program, first off, we need some ambitious goals. And if we're exploring space, Mars is the most logical location to send humans. Now, there's some good locations.
Better than the moon?
Better than the moon in the sense that it does have an atmosphere. It is the only planet, at least, that we can reach that might have been able to support life. It may still actually support microbial life. There is a growing body of evidence that there actually is microbial life subsurface on Mars. So it probably will take people to discover that. Plus, it's actually the only planet that we can actually reach, and we know of, where humans could actually survive for long durations of time. The moon is close. That's a definite benefit.
Yeah, it is, right. It is closer, right?
Yeah, so, that's much closer. So there is a definite benefit there. But
the winters are so cold on the moon. You really want to go somewhere nicer. You know?
What do you know? Your son's told you that, right?
Yeah, sure.
They are very cold, except without any atmosphere. The difference between the light and the dark is remarkable, hundreds of degrees difference. So you could literally freeze and boil at the same time on the moon if you are standing in shadow and light without a spacesuit.
Wow.
You convinced me, but I don't want to go to the moon. Then. But haven't convinced me yet about Mars. But I'm sure you get that question. I mean, it is. Look, Columbus faced that question. Why do we want to cross the damn ocean? Right? You know, I mean, there's always this. Why aren't we happy where we are? You know. So what do you tell the skeptics that you meet in the Congress? The Tea Party people don't want to spend money on anything. Why should we be spending money? You know, to not to explore, just to explore space, but to actually maybe even, send humans out there and colonize it.
Well, basically, I'll take first the historical perspective. Generally, when countries and societies are expanding or exploring, that really is when they are expanding. It's generally the greatest technology leaps forward in technology innovation have been when we're doing great projects like this, exploring, trying to understand the unknown. And, really it's actually beneficial to Earth as well. Most environmentalists should be very much in favor of this as well, because, by learning about other planets, we learn about our own planet as well. Like within science, you never look at one sample and assume you know everything about that sample. You need to look at other samples as well. And Mars is another sample. And so there's another reason. We've probably the best environmental theory of the 20th century was learned or discovered because of looking at Venus, the greenhouse effect. Because Venus has runaway greenhouse effect. It's 900 degrees with really thick clouds. But Mars seems to be on the opposite end of the spectrum. It used to be a warm, wet place, from all evidence, and now it's not. And trying to figure out what happened to that planet can help us learn about our own. But from my perspective, what is even more important, why we want to do it, there are lots of scientific reasons, but national morale and exciting the country and STEM education. When we went to the moon, we literally doubled the number of science and engineering degrees because people were excited. Students were really engaged, and they thought they were going to be able to get involved in great projects for exploring space. I'm a supporter of education, but I doubt that we would have had these same results if we had just invested that in education. Because sometimes you need that spark, that catalyst. And frankly, at this point in time in our history, I think it's the right time. I think Americans have a confidence problem, and I think they need to be reminded that we're still capable of this. And with the space program, while it is expensive, it's not as expensive as people think. It's less than half of 1% of the federal budget. So if we can show by this project that we can do it for roughly the same amount of money, we could actually do an ambitious mission to Mars and other things for roughly the same budget without major increases in the NASA budget. Why wouldn't we? I think it's a far more efficient use of taxpayer dollars. If we're going to be spending the money anyway, let's do something bold and exciting.
And how long would it take to get there?
Takes about 6 to 8 months to get there.
Wow.
It's a long trip.